making connections between Bunkspeed, Photoshop, and Alias. And these are all fundamental ways to update your data as your design evolves throughout the design process, whether you're the designer or a visualization specialist. So this is Drive, our Drive suite here that I'll be demoing today. And this is a student model done a long time ago. It's a Toyota Camry. Go ahead and spin it around so you can see the design. Now this is a fresh import into our system. So as the model is imported, this is how it comes in. I did change the body color to make it a little more reflective so we can see the surfacing on the vehicle. And then added a nice glossiness to the ground here just to kind of give it a good starting point for our demo. And now these are, what I'm going to show you, these are all features that we've had for a while. Some of our competitors have just started to put these features in, but the purpose of this webinar today is to show you that we've had them for a while and just to kind of call some attention to them. These are really powerful workflows. So once again, I just imported this model fresh into Bunkspeed Drive here. I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to Alias, where that model is imported here as well. Go ahead and move these tabs away. So here's the model in Alias as well. Now what we're going to do, let's say we imported the model into Bunkspeed here. It's looking great. We've moved the model, we've scaled the model, and all of a sudden the hood changes, the hood design changes. Well, rather than having to re-import the model and rescale and reposition it to fit on the model where the old hood was, what we're going to do, we're just going to go ahead and do a very seamless integration between data, your design evolving from Alias and then into our Bunkspeed suite. So let's go ahead and grab the hood here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick, we'll turn the CVs on, and then I'm going to grab the CVs just to manipulate the design of the hood. Turn my CVs on, there we go. Now let's say, for intensive purposes, for this demo, let's say we want to grab these CVs in the center to make a peak in the hood. So we're going to go ahead and move these up just to show you a little bit of a design change. There we go, there's our hood in Alias, changed from when we had imported into Bunkspeed. I'm going to select that object, and I'll export active as, and we'll just do a wire. And we'll call it updated hood. Okay, so it's saved out of Alias. We'll go ahead and go back into Bunkspeed here. And I'll drag that updated hood wire file into Bunkspeed. We'll just select the default. Now it's imported in here, and if I turn ray tracing off, you'll see it in our model tree, updated hood. But now where it came in right where the original model was imported. So instead of having to drag and eyeball and finesse to put the new hood back on the model, what we're going to do, we're just going to right mouse click on the model in our model tree, and then select Make to Model. We'll go ahead and click on the car, that's the car model, and click OK. There we go, just like that. It is now part of the entire model there, right where the old hood was. And what I can do, I'll go ahead and hide that hood. I'll grab the old hood surface. I'll delete that surface, and then there we go. Now the hood fits perfectly in the model, and I'll go ahead and shift mouse click on the body material, and then shift left mouse click on the body material, and then shift right click, and that assigns, that's a shortcut in Bunkspeed to assign the same shader to an object. So there we go. It's that simple to go from Alias to Bunkspeed with as your data evolves throughout the design process. And now let's say another cool feature is part retessellation. So let's say the model came from your native CAD software, which in this case will be Alias, and the tessellation is really low. And what that means is the outline of the object here, the Toyota symbol, is jaggedy. And you can kind of see the jagged edges of the ellipse there. So what we're going to do, we're going to use our part retessellation tool to add polygons in those areas to make that now a smooth ellipse, which helps when you're noticing in this case, that the logo is not crisp, and if you want to get a nice detail shot of that logo, it's going to look pretty jaggedy. So what we'll also do to show this feature a bit more, I'm going to turn on the wireframe. Under rasterization options, I'm going to show the wireframe. And you can kind of see here that these are straight lines, and they should be a nice smooth curve. So when I use a retessellation feature, all of these lines will be now a nice smooth curve. So with our part selected, I'll go down here and click tessellation quality. Right now the default is 0.5, but if we crank it up to, let's say, 1 or so, and then hit retessellate, let's select our part first. There we go. And then we'll retessellate. Give me one moment. Okay, one moment. Sorry about that. Our logo seems to have been misplaced. Well, what I can do, I'll show the part retessellation on the windshield here. You can see that's easy as well. So we'll show the wireframe there, and now you can see the gaps between all these polygons here. Let's go ahead and crank that up to 1. We'll hit retessellate. And as it comes back in, that should show all of the wireframe. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do a new import here. I don't know why this file is not working. Sorry, everybody, bear with me here. Okay, so now I'm just importing a new model, that same model, into Bunkspeed here just to start fresh so we can go ahead and show you how the part retessellation works. And it's a really powerful tool, especially when like I said, your parts come in completely tessellated, and the tessellation is low, and you want to retessellate that object. So let's see if this will work now. So we'll go ahead and grab our windshield. We will turn on our wireframe again. You can now see the polygon. We'll go down to tessellation quality with that part selected. We'll do 0.9 this time, and we'll click retessellate, and there we go. Now you can see all the polygons are now a lot closer than they were before, which will give you a smoother surface, and you'll be able to see the higher tessellation quality, especially when the surface is reflective like the glass will be. So that's pretty simple to show you how to retessellate parts. It'll work for the Toyota logo. It can work for any part, especially circles. The nice thing about importing a wire file, though, is in this rim here, you'll see that the tessellation is pretty high as it is, but in some instances that can be pretty low. So the retessellation works very, very well, especially on round objects, just to get you that nice, smooth circle. Okay, so I showed you how to update parts from Alias and also how to retessellate parts. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and show you some more workflows through Photoshop. So I'm going to open up another file that I've created here using the same car. Now this one's all materialized. I'll go ahead and turn ray tracing on in blend mode. I'm just going to go ahead and restart this so Drive can show us the cool features that I'm about to show you. And I'm going to go ahead and take the time just to tell you how I painted the model was through our community. And what our community is, it's basically it's a digital online database where users can upload and share materials, environments, backplates, textures, products, and it's all native. It's a native direct link interface into our software. You'll see that I'm logged in the upper right of my screen as Brian Hillner. And then when I click on the toggle here, this toggles back and forth between your local library and your web library. Everything that you see here in this window, these are all materials that are online at bunkspeed.com/community, where people can upload and share materials and projects and environments. So in this case, I did grab some materials like some metallic paint. Go ahead and load up some of those assets. So this is coming all from directly online. So it's pretty cool. You just drag and drop into your model. And that's a great way to paint your models, use all the materials here that are created. There's a lot of materials. We have over 1,000 different materials here for you to go ahead and use. And these are all free. It's free to sign up. And the nice thing is it's a direct link into our software from our website community. Now let's go ahead and grab another material. Let's grab a metallic paint again. Let's do a white pearl for this demonstration. So I'm going to show you the white body color will definitely help. I'm going to let this res up here with our ray tracing. Our ray tracer is in blend right now. So when I have this slider off, this is in our raster performance mode here, which is great for setting up a scene and materializing. Then when you're ready to output some renders, we can turn it on. We can turn ray trace on in 2 different modes. We have blend, which allows me to use performance mode while moving in our viewport. And then as I let go, the ray trace magically blends in to give you that real nice photorealistic effect. Or I can just keep ray tracing on, where it's on by default the whole time as we continue. I'm going to use blend though, so it's kind of cool to move it around and then have that slow transition into the photorealistic there. Okay, so I showed you a little bit of workflow between Alias and Bunkspeed. Now I'm going to show you between Photoshop and Bunkspeed. Now let's go ahead and show you the environment tab here. In our environment, I have a specific environment that I created called Auto Photo Studio _webinar. And if I hover my mouse over the thumbnail on the right here, it'll show me where that exact file is located. So I can navigate to that file, which I did, and open it up in Photoshop. And now let's say, I'll go back to Bunkspeed just to show you, let's say that the lighting works great, but we really wanted a cool light to wrap around the edge of the car to show that fall off and the depth of the surfacing. Well, I can add a light in Bunkspeed, which is very easy, and make that light blue. I can create a plane up here and make that an emissive, apply an emissive material to that, make the material blue, and then you'll see it glow along the side. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to do something that's pretty cool, and that's I'm going to update this HDR in Photoshop, and then with the blue light, and then you'll see the results live. So the cool thing is this auto update feature. Like I said, you can reference the file by the file name there to update in Photoshop, and before you do that, we're going to activate the auto update feature. What that does is it links whatever changes are made to this file, since I'm using that environment in Bunkspeed, it links directly to that, so whatever changes are made in Photoshop are automatically updated in Bunkspeed. So let's use a blue. I have a blue selected. And just so the users know, the part of the HDRs that you will find a band, that you'll find the most activity, is about right here. And that's because we can see the sharp horizon line. If I put a guide in there, you can see the sharp horizon line there. And then this is actually wrapped on top of the vehicle, and this is all underneath the vehicle. So the majority of area that you want to paint into your HDR is about that third right there. So let's go ahead and bring up our brush. We'll soften it a little bit. I've got that blue selected. Let's start punching up a nice blue light over here. Yeah, that'll look real nice. Blue light. So we'll go ahead and save that from Photoshop. And then it automatically, as you see in our thumbnail, it automatically updated. We have that blue light. And now if I hide our backplate here, as I zoom out, you'll be able to see that blue light in our environment. And the hotkey to rotate your environment on the fly is Control, Alt, left mouse click. That's what I'm using now to rotate my environment. Let's go ahead and zoom back in here. I'll turn the backplate back on. There we go. We're getting that nice blue light, kind of exactly where I wanted it to wrap around the car. We can continue to rotate that and move. You can see the blue light travel around the vehicle. I'll go ahead and let that ray trace so we can see what that looks like. Now let's say we wanted to add, we've got a blue light. Let's say we want to make the blue light kind of on the rear of the vehicle over there, or on the side there. You can see it in the wheels. Let's go ahead and add a nice red light over here on the other side as well. So go back into Photoshop. I'll go ahead and select this red. We'll turn the opacity way up so you can see the changes here. And we'll paint that in right there. We'll go ahead and save that out again, just doing Control S. And then all of a sudden it's updated in Bunkspeed as well, just like that on the fly. So it's pretty cool. You can change, you can paint, you can add object. You can take away objects. Let's say your HDR has a nasty lamppost over here that's reflecting on the hood of the car. You can go into Photoshop, remove that lamppost, and then the backplate's automatically updated. Within our software, just make sure you have auto update activated. And if you don't, if you want to force update the environment, you can check. You can click here, which reloads the source file from the disk. But the auto update feature is pretty nice. So that's how to auto update environments. Let's do the same for this backplate here. Let's say we've got, we kind of like this gradient that we have going on here, but maybe we want to put some of that blue that we have in the car on the background, in the foreground, and maybe in some of the background areas too. Let's go back into Photoshop. I have that backplate located and open in Photoshop once again. You can just hover your mouse over that thumbnail on the right, and that's where the file name and location comes up. Navigate to that file, open it up in Photoshop. We'll grab that same sort of blue here, and we'll turn the opacity down a little bit. Let's kind of paint in a little bit of blue there. Maybe some on the top too. And maybe we want a stripe of red, kind of gradating towards that red a little bit in the corner. Yeah, that'll look nice. So go ahead and save that. Go back in, and I did not check the activate button, but that's because I wanted to show you how to use this update backplate button as well. So you can click on that, and there we go. Now it's updated. I could also activate it like I did for the environment, but I wanted to show you how to use that button to update it as well. Now we can add, you can do anything you want in the Photoshop to add, add or take away any of your environments or any of your backplates. You can update that. You can paint other objects here. The gradation is really nice, especially for the studio environment. Excellent, great. So that's how to update Photoshop in Photoshop your HDRs and backplates. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to update textures in Photoshop as well. We'll go ahead and let that res up. You can see the detail of the model. And at this point, I'd like to say that our rendering engine is extremely powerful, especially when it comes to rendering headlamps and tail lamps and other very difficult items to render. In this model, the geometry is pretty simple. So you can still see a nice shade on the glass here, and then also the HDR or the HID lens in the back with the kind of fall off from that light. But since our engine, our iRay ray tracer is so powerful, if you have any sort of headlamp that you need to render, headlamps and tail lamps are notoriously tough to render, please consider our software, as our ray tracer is extremely powerful. So let's go ahead and let's say we want to put a decal, a racing decal on this car here, like let's say like a racing number. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and go to our Materials tab, and just so you know, the interface here is extremely flexible. I can move the palette, I can grow the palette. I kind of prefer using this sort of setup where I have 2 rows of materials and all my parameters over here, just to make it easier to navigate and apply materials and shaders and such. So to add that decal here, I'm going to right mouse click in our Materials tab, and I'm going to say New Decal. And I'm going to navigate to a decal I made, and let's go ahead and pull that up for you. And now this is called I called it our base decal. And I'm going to change the color of the car here so you can see a bit more of how this plays out and works. Go ahead and rotate the environment. Yeah, something like that works great. Let that res up. Get a nice highlight across the body side. So I have our base decal here. I'm going to apply it to the surface of the door. And it comes in a little big, but that's okay. We can go ahead and scale that using the interface here, grabbing these boxes, and you can scale up and down. Use this green to rotate and the arrow to position. So this is going to be the size of my decal here. Give me one sec while this machine catches up. And as you can see with the decals, you can add graphics and numbers and logos, and it's really cool how it wraps along the surface there. So that's pretty cool to see, and it'll go over any surface. We can even, go into the door handle there. But for this, let's keep it on the door. We'll scale it up a little bit. There we go, looking good. That looks great. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to upload a texture onto this onto this area, this decal here, to show you how you can update textures in Photoshop as well. So we're going to do, let's say we want to put a racing number here, and we want to use, let's use like a gray paint. So I'm going to go add new material. Go ahead and change the material property to paint. I'll assign this material to this decal. So it's kind of cool that you can assign materials to decals as well. And maybe we want to change the color a little bit. Maybe we'll do like a bright green or something just to show you. Yeah, make Bunkspeed green. That looks good. So now I have the text of number, a racing number I created in Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and open that up here. It's called racing number. Racing number 11. There we go. Now I have this saved out as I'll save it out as a PNG. But as you see here, it's a text file and just a regular layer. And the thing to note when you use decals and textures is to have that background that you see here. We need a transparent background in order for it to import correctly. So we'll go ahead and save this as a PNG with that transparent background, and we'll call it number 11. There we go. I'll take none. Excellent. So now we'll go back into Bunkspeed here. And in this material, I'm going to double-click in our texture panel here. I'm going to add this material, the number 11 we created, as an alpha channel. And what that means, it's really simple, is anywhere that there's black in this number 11, the green will show through, and anywhere that there's white in this PNG here, the green will be hidden. So that's the simple explanation of an alpha channel. And I'm going to uncheck brightness as alpha, and there we go. Now we have that alpha channel. And there's our decal, number 11. Go ahead and turn ray tracing on, looking good. And then what we'll do, I'll go ahead and let's say it goes through a couple revisions of design feedback, and we're down the road, and let's say, oh shoot, we need that needed to be number 11, or it needs to be number 13 rather than 11. So I'll go back into Photoshop, and since this was a text layer, I can easily change it to number 13. We'll go ahead and save this as number 13 here as a PNG, once again with a transparent background. I'll go back into Drive here. I'll double-click on this alpha, and instead of using 11, let's use 13, and there we go. That's how you can update decals and textures on the fly using Photoshop. Pretty convenient, and you really don't have to do too much work. Just remember to use the PNG with a transparent background. Okay, so now we've got the car all ready. I've showed you how to work through Alias and Photoshop to optimize your workflow, and using how to create a fast working connection between Bunkspeed and those programs. And now what I'll do, I'm going to show you how to save out a camera animation. So I'm going to bring up our timeline here, our animation timeline. And what I've already created is I created a second camera by just right mouse clicking and saying New Camera. I'll go ahead and activate that camera, and I created a very simple flyby of this vehicle here using that camera. And I can tell that camera has an animation path attached to it because it has this red icon here showing that the camera has an animation timeline path associated with it. So that's the path that we'd like to use for this camera. I'll go ahead and right mouse click on the camera and click Save to File. And we'll save this in our Bunkspeed camera area as, let's say, we'll call it camera flyby _2. There we go. And now what we can do is we can load this camera flyby, the exact same animation, in another file. Let's say we have another vehicle we painted up and we really love this animation, the flyby that we did. So we would like to use that in that project as well. So let's go ahead and open up a new project. And for this, I'm going to show you something else, a great feature that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and create a couple spheres here as I show you this flyby. So we have our sphere selected. I'm going to Control-C, Control-C a couple times. We have multiple spheres here. I'll zoom in so you can see what we're doing. And now when I have multiple models selected, what I can do is under the Formation tool here, I can easily display all of these models in a variety of ways. which is great, especially for product design when you want to show off more than one product, and you'd really like to use it to highlight your product and show a couple different color palettes and colorways. So I can change the formation type and the spacing as well. For this, let's bring it in a little closer for our purposes. You can use a slider or fine-tune it here. There we go. There's our cluster of 5 spheres. And I'm going to import that camera. Right now, click, we'll say Load Camera. And by default, it brings up our Bunkspeed Cameras window. We'll go ahead and click Camera Flyby 2, Open. And there we go. It's already selected, and we can fly around the spheres just like we did the car. That's pretty cool that the camera animation is, you can save that out, and it's camera specific, and you can upload, you can import that camera into another file. And this is our animation ribbon. We have tutorials about this as well, so I won't go into too much detail. But that's just showing the flow of the camera. And then each of these points here are, each of these keyframes are editable, so you can see the camera, the actual visual representation of the camera path in our viewport window. Okay, so there's our camera. We've got our spheres here. I showed you how to save out camera animations. Also, you can save out fixed camera angles and also post-processing. And I'll show you a little bit about post-processing in just a second. So we have these spheres already. Let's go ahead and materialize them. A cool feature that we've had for a long time is our color dropper. Not too many people know about this, so that's the point of the webinar today. I'm going to show you the color dropper. So let's say we want to add a green glass material to this first ball, this first sphere. And we found a really cool image online. Let's go ahead and go to online, and let's type in green glass. And we'll go to images, just green glass for now. And let's say you like this, I guess, 7-Up, old school 7-Up bottles or glass Sprite bottles here. So let's go ahead and go back into Bunkspeed. We'll go ahead and grab this file or the window. I'm going to make the app a little bit more manageable so we can see both open at the same time. There we go. That works. So now that I have the glass I'd like to color drop, let's go ahead and create a new material. Get this over so you can see it a bit better. I'll create a new material, and then I'm going to change the parameter to glass. I'll go ahead and load it on our sphere there. I'm going to uncheck solid so you can start to see through it a little bit. Then with our color dropper, it's just that simple. We are the only ones that you can grab the color dropper, and as you notice, I can take it out of our program and select anything else, and then it updates it on the fly. And since I have blend on, which is pretty cool, every time I change this color and let it res up, you can see an exact one-to-one comparison and color drop anything, be it on the web or anywhere else. That looks pretty good. And then have it update in our system using the color dropper. So that's a really cool tool. You can color drop anything. It's not our app specific. You can color drop anything. And let's say you are a product designer or a toy designer and you have a very specific color Pantone paint chip that you're trying to replicate. Well, as we know, Photoshop, if we go back into Photoshop here, Photoshop has all the Pantone color libraries. So I'll bring up my color picker in Photoshop. I'll click on color library. And in there, we have all these Pantone libraries already loaded. So let's say we want to use a solid uncoated, and we wanted to use this 192U, because that's what we'd like to spec out as a designer. So it's going to be on a final product. So let's go ahead and see that in our software as well. So let's go ahead and create a new material. Again, right now, click New Material. And this is going to be plastic. This is probably going to be for a toy. And I'll grab this material, assign it. And then for the color, once again, I'll grab my color dropper, go out of our app, and there we go. That's exactly it, 192U. Pretty cool, huh? I think it's cool. And let's say we want to do a metallic coated. You can do metallics as well. So you want to get like a teal, something like this, like 8225 feet. You can be extremely specific with this. We'll create another material. And this will be a metallic material. So we'll go metallic pink. We'll assign it to this sphere here. And for the color, for the base color, we'll go ahead and grab 8225C. And then for the metal color, we'll go ahead and grab this top, the 8220C. And there we go. We've got a nice representation of that sort of palette of chips here, the Pantone chips, to create that material. You can also add metal roughness and metal coverage to really fine-tune those materials. You can add some clear coat to make it have a little more reflectivity. And let's go ahead and grab a couple more. We'll do some bright colors now. Let's do some solid-coated. Grab a nice red, 226C. That's a pink. Go ahead and grab that one. Once again, new material. Go ahead and drag it over. Grab that hot pink for let's say, a Barbie playset, if you will. That looks awesome. There we go. We'll change that from matte to, let's say, a paint. So we have some more reflectivity and parameters to control. And let's do one more material since I have 5 balls here. Let's grab, let's make it a metal this time. We'll get a nice shiny metal. Let's do like a bright green metal. So I'll assign this shader to this material. I'll zoom in here so you can see it a little bit. And I'll change the color. Once again, drag the color dropper. Since I have blend turned on, it's pretty cool. I can just scroll through this entire Pantone library as on the fly. Pretty cool. We can use the dropper outside of our software. Let that res up. And there you go. That's how you use our color dropper to select colors from web, from other applications. You can use Photoshop, their Pantone library. So you basically can reproduce any color, especially the Pantone chips, in our software using that color dropper. We'll go ahead and let that res up a little bit. You can see. Okay, so once again, we'll go ahead and recap. I showed you how to update parts from Alias into our software. We can also, I also showed you how to part retessellate. So if the tessellation comes in too low, you can use our nifty part retessellation tool. Once again, it's under, you select the part, and it's in our part parameters. I'll make this a little bigger. There we go. It's in our part parameters down here. Now this is created in our software, so it won't be, the part retessellation is not visible. But when it comes in as a wire file or any NURBS data set, you can retessellate those parts. Okay, and let's see, I also showed you how to use Photoshop to increase your efficiency in your workflow with going back and forth between Photoshop and Bunkspeed, manipulating backplates and environments, and also textures. And then also showed you the camera file, how those are native. You can save those out and import the cameras into other projects. Also post-processing, which I'll go ahead and show you right now. So with post-processing, I'll leave this on blend. Post-processing is in our cameras tab here. I'm going to take this camera here, our default camera, Control-C, Control-V, just to go ahead and make a copy of that camera. Now under post-processing, this is basically like all your Photoshop needs that you would ever need to do when you output a render from Bunkspeed and import it into Photoshop to play with the saturation and values and such, and curves. All that can be done right here in our app. And the cool thing is it's camera specific. So you can have 20 different cameras here with 20 different post-processing values assigned to them. And then you can save out those cameras and use them in other projects just like we did with the wire file. So let's say we wanted to add a vignette to this camera. That may be a bit extreme. Let's back it up a little bit, maybe about 50 or so. Do a little bit more, maybe about 25. There we go. And we'll go ahead and lighten this a little bit so we can see more of the vehicle. We'll lighten some of the lighter areas. We can change the exposure, maybe 1.5 as well. Go ahead and knock this vignette down a little bit since it's a little large still. There we go. That's looking pretty good. We can also use color filters, which are pretty cool. Let's really give this a nice, warm tone. Well, with using color theory, you have to use the opposite color, which blue will give us a warm tone, as you see there. There we go. We can add a nice little bit of warmth to the image. Once again, all these are camera specific, so you can save these out and import them in other files as well. And you can toggle this on and off, so you can see what we had originally, now what we have. And the great thing is when you go through the post-processing and check this box on and off, it does not interfere with your pass count, which means each time I make a change here, it doesn't have to start from 0 passes and work its way up like if I moved the camera. See how it started from 0, now it's working its way up, revving in. This can all be done as you get your final money shot together, turn on ray tracing, and then you can play with all these parameters here until you get it fine-tuned nicely as it revs up. So I thought that's pretty cool little feature. Okay, so that's most of the webinar that I wanted to show you today, going through how to use Bunkspeed, Photoshop, and Alias seamlessly. Also showed you how those camera files, to save those out. Those are native to each specific camera file, so it's pretty cool to use animations that you've created in a single project and use it in another project, and also post-processing and the camera positioning. Okay, so let's see, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and see if we have any questions. I have with me today our Director of Operations, Dave Randall, who will also help answer any questions. Dave, are you there on the line? He may be.
Hey guys, yeah, I'm here.
There he is.
So I think we took care of most of the. Hey, how's it going, guys? We took care of most of the questions that were coming into the questions panel, but because you completed such a timely fashion, I think it would be good to show, I think, the beginning 10 minutes over again. I think that went by really quickly for some people, so I think it would be worth showing the import, part updating, and the retessellation.
Sure, I can definitely do that.
And I'll continue to answer questions, and if you guys do have questions, because we are running a bit ahead of schedule today, definitely ask them in the panel, and we'll be happy to answer them and or show you, within the software to help answer your question.
Actually, this is a good point. I'll show you how I created that base file without applying materials, how we had that nice reflectivity in the paint and everything. Now is a good time to go through that process. It's really simple. So as this model imports here, there we go. So this is a direct import from Alias. You see here it's got that flat shader on it. There's no ground shadow, and there's no ground reflectivity. And our focal length is 91, which I like to use a little bit more of a wide-angle lens. And to do that, to change the focal length of the camera, I hold down Alt and use our scroll wheel. And you'll see the focal length change. As I scroll through the wheel, I can do a long telephoto lens, so now the focal length is 160. Or I can do a little bit wider of an angle lens, about 35 is what I like to work with, sometimes around 55 as well. Okay, so let's add some reflectivity to that paint. I'll go ahead and grab this material, and it came in as a generic, and all I'm going to do, change it to paint. There we go, just like that. Now we have some nice reflectivity to see more of the surfacing. And once again, I'm in our raster mode. So if I turn on ray trace, you'll see the real scientific calculations of shadow and lighting and ground shadow and all that. But in raster, let's say if you wanted to add a ground shadow in raster, that's really simple. We'll just click on the model, go to rasterization options here at the bottom, and then click of a button, enable ground shadow. And just like that, in this quick performance mode, you have a nice ground shadow. And if I wanted to add some reflectivity to the floor, I'll go to my Environments tab here. And we have two sliders called Ground Reflection and Ground Glossiness. If I crank up the ground reflection, you can see how reflective the floor of our environment are getting. And as I turn on Ray Trace, then I can show you the ground glossiness parameters. So now it's exact mirror. It's very mirror finish, very Apple-esque. But if I wanted to add some glossiness to the ground to kind of smooth out and fade out that reflection a little bit, I have all these parameters and controls, and I can adjust it as I see fit. So this is how you saw it before as I first imported the model with the reflective paint, the ground shadow, and also the ground reflectivity. And the reflectivity stays in raster mode as well, which is pretty cool. So let's go back over to Alias. I'm going to go ahead and close this and launch the app again just to start from scratch. So as Alias uploads, I'll go ahead and load the same file into Alias that I just uploaded into Bunkspeed. Okay, I'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Go ahead and materialize this, put on our default shader. Okay, and let's go ahead and change that hood surface again. Let's say we went through a design revision and don't want to have to re-import it into our software and realign it with the model. And for this specific purpose, I will also click on the model. Let's go ahead and scale this guy. Let's scale it up a lot. And we will move it from where it originally imported just to show you this make to model feature. So as you can see, it's a lot larger and it's off the center axis here. So when I update this part from Alias, we'll use the make to model feature to mate it exactly to that model. So I'll go ahead and select my surface here, turn on my CV, take nothing. I'll take my CVs here if you want to manipulate the hood surface. We'll go ahead and move these CVs up, give that a mohawk in the front. There we go. So that's our updated design. And now I'll show you seamlessly how to update this in Bunkspeed as well. We'll go ahead and pick our object. We'll export active as, save it as a wire, save, and we'll call it updated hood _2. Okay, that's all saved. We'll go back into Bunkspeed here, and I'll grab that file, drag it over from the window. So here it is, updated hood _2. I'll bring it in. I'll select the defaults, and there you go. Now it's in our model scene. It's in our viewport. And as you see, it was placed where the vehicle originally was in the import, in its position and its scale. And instead of having to eyeball it and have it fit exactly to this hood here, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and use make to model to bring it over and place it exactly with the rest of the model in placement and also scale. Before I do that, I'm going to show you our part splitting tool, because this hood now, even in Alias, it came in as a separate part, but in our software it read it as one part. So I'm going to part split that hood out, which is another extremely convenient tool. It's really powerful too. Like let's say you forgot to part split out the windows and you need to assign a specific shader to just the DLO. Well, you can use our part splitting tool to do that. So I'll go ahead and right mouse click on the part, select extract part. I'm going to keep the default tolerance of 20. And what this is a slider very similar to the magic wand in Photoshop. The larger it is, the more number of pixels, and in this case it's working in 3D, polygons it will grab from the original clip. So it only selected half of the hood because we use symmetry in Alias. But when I execute split there and close this and select the part, now that's all one part. So now I can hide that part. So I can show you exactly how this hood will mate to this model. And to do that, we'll go ahead and click on the model. Right-click and say mate to model. So it selected the hood. And now I could have 10, 15, 20 different models in here to mate to. But in this case, I just have one model, which is the main car body model. Click OK. And there we go. Just like that, it brought it over to the rest of the model, mated it perfectly. So now I don't have to do anything else, no scaling, no eyeballing. Mate to model works like a charm. And once again, I'll use, let's say, because now you can see that the hood is the original imported material, I can shift left mouse click on the material I want to assign to it, and then shift right mouse click, and that's a shortcut to apply the same material to different objects. So that's a little bit, again, of how to add, how when your geometry updates in Alias, how to import it very quickly and efficiently in Bunkspeed using our mate to model feature. Now I can also show part retessellation. Let's go ahead and use the Windows again because that worked out well for us last time. Okay, I will select the part of the window, so selecting the entire window here, the DLO. Under tessellation quality, which is just here on the right of the screen, its default is 50. Let's go ahead and show you the wireframe first. And as I zoom in here, you can kind of see how much spacing there is in between the polygons here. So if I go down to tessellation quality, we'll go ahead and crank that up to 0.9, enter, and click retessellate. Then as it comes back, all these polygons are a lot closer together, which gives us a nice, more smooth, even, controlled surface to apply reflective materials to give better rendering. You won't have any jagged edges. It'll be a nice, smooth transition gradation across this whole surface. And like I said, it works really well on round objects because sometimes when you import wheels and circles, they come in almost like a stop sign. Like all this tessellation, the tessellation is really, really, really low. So you can just click on the part, go to tessellation quality, and then enter your value, and then hit retessellate, and it brings it in from the original file. It's probably important to note that the file naming and also the location should remain the same. That way, the part retessellation can reference the native file. I think that's why the Toyota logo did not work in the beginning, because it was referencing a file that I moved or was renamed. Okay, so that's how to update parts from Alias and also how to retessellate parts in our software. Were there any other questions, Dave, that you'd like me to go over at this moment?
Hey, Brian. No, I'm just on keyboard fire here answering some of the questions. Obviously, a lot of people have had some really good questions since we opened this Q&A. So I'm going to stay focused and keep answering these questions. So I'll get back to it.
Perfect. Sounds good. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and bring up, I'm going to bring up this materialized file, and I'll show you camera depth of field. Another pretty cool feature that that we haven't really gone over too much in our webinars, but I'm going to go ahead and show you that feature because it just adds more of a sense of depth and realism to your photos. And it's cool. The sliders are extremely intuitive, and just being able to add depth of field to your rendering is just, takes them to the next level. So to do that, I'll open up our materialized file here. Go ahead and let this open. Now it's rendering, looking nice. I'm going to work in raster for now. In my camera's parameter, I'm going to Control-C, Control-V, so copy-paste this camera here. Double-click on that camera, make it active. And in the camera drop-down, our parameters over here, we have a drop-down called Depth of Field. Now I can enable depth of field by just using this check, and I will turn ray trace on. And you can't see too much of the depth of field because I haven't set it up quite yet. So let's say I'm really zoomed in here, and I've got a high focal, a real wide-angle lens, and I want to just focus on the headlamp here and blur the rest of the car out. So now you can see depth of field working. I'll click my eye icon here, and what that does is it brings up these crosshairs, and I can select any point in the model, any point in my viewport, like this headlamp, for example. Now as this revs up, the headlamp's nice and in focus, and the rest of the model, has that nice blur, that fall off from the depth of field. And I have these controls here. I can do a higher f-stop, which will give me a wider, a more deep, I guess a deeper focal length, so more of the car is in focus as well. But if I did an f-stop of like 1, for example, then that's going to get extremely blurry in the back. And then where we selected with the crosshairs will be nice and focused up front. We can also change that if we want to focus on the mirror. That's pretty cool. Now we're focusing on that area. Maybe we want to focus on the door handle. So you can see that plane of the car is in focus and the rest is all blurred out. Works great for detail shots. Like if I wanted to get a nice detail on this rim here, like if I had a cool logo, like the Ferrari logo or something, I'm going to go ahead and click on my camera. I'll go ahead and change this to about a 2 or so. Grab my eyedropper, and let's say we want to click right about here. So then this part of the rim will be in focus, and then the rest will be all blurred out. If we had a nice logo in the front or on the middle of the center cap, I could have just that logo. I'll let this res up so you can see. I could have just that logo extremely, clear, the clarity from the depth of field, and then the rest of the car, the rim around it, will be nice and out of focus, giving me that depth and realism to our photos. So I'll go ahead and make that a bit more extreme. That res up a little bit. Very good. So that's camera depth of field. And once again, that can be used in a variety of ways, especially if you're lining up multiple products, like when I use those spheres, for example, from before. It can be used to give some depth of field to your photos, especially if you have multiple parts that are the same design but of different colors. If you wanted a nice money shot for your cover page PDF before you present to your client, that sort of application. Let this res up so you can see the reflectivity of the model. Excellent. I'll check back with Dave one more time to see if he has any other questions that he'd like for me to explain to our viewers rather than just the typing as well. Is there anything you'd like me to show here, Dave, to any specific questions?
That's a very good question. I mean, a couple key questions that came in that I mentioned we would definitely cover in future webinars. One is specific drive functionality, but it's a bit late to get started on all that right now. The other was kind of how to begin painting an HDRI from scratch in Photoshop. So if we have a few minutes, I don't know if it's worth covering that topic just kind of quickly, or at least showing the fundamental or the basics. We can always cover that more in depth as a separate webinar, but maybe that would be something interesting to show.
Sure. And so just as we showed you can update the HDR through Photoshop, we'll also create one from scratch. And I'll create something similar just to this Chrome Studio, just to show you something quick in Photoshop and how to make that happen. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop here. Let's go ahead and open up a new document. We'll do 1920 by 1080. Okay, and well, first let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and make it black. So we'll go ahead and start from scratch. We'll fill this with our foreground color, and let's add a horizon line of sorts. We'll put the horizon line about here or so, and I can refer back to the webinar backplate that we used, kind of gauge about where a good horizon line would be. Now, all that is, we can change that once we finish this HDR and upload it into Bunkspeed. We can change those parameters of height and size and everything. So let's go ahead and start painting some white blocks here. It's going to be important to note to switch your mode to 32-bit channel. Only when your mode is in 32-bit channel can you save out an HDR. So, for example, if I was back in my 8-bit channel and I went to File, Save As, there is no radiance file, and that's what the HDRs, that's what the file name is called. It's called radiance. There's no radiance file here. So always make sure to go to Image Mode, 32-bit channel, and then when I go File, Save As, in this drop-down, I now have the radiance file. And it's good to note that since I started with a white background, any light value, either colored or values in general, will be painting the light. So I'm actually going to be painting light. And as we are in the HDR, the 632-bit channel, we have these are basically our color selections. And you can see that with our new color selected, if we go up a stop, 1 stop, 2 stop, 3 stops, and then down, this is mostly photography terms, a stop, a full stop in your exposure. So if I go up from there, from this root color that I selected, and you can kind of see what the result will be. So let's go ahead and keep this white for now. And I could do a number of things. I could just paint multiple, if I were to fill those white, I could paint that white. So I could fill foreground color, boom, I could do that, similar to the Chrome Studio. Or I could just use my brush. Let's try this, for example. Use a brush. And let's say we wanted to paint some white over here. Now I have it on 18% opacity. I'll probably crank that up just a little bit. And let's say I wanted to grab some light over here, maybe some in the middle. Maybe I want to put some bands throughout. So now what I have here, you can see that I have a hot spot here, a hot spot here, and a hot spot here. And that's just from the white is more opaque there that I painted. And then I do have some glow throughout here, which will also light up the vehicle. So let's see what that does for our car. I'll go ahead and save this out. I'm going to put it in my, let's put it in my, my Bunkspeed content folder, environment. I'm going to save it as the Radiance file, and we'll just call it Webinar Test. Webinar Test, save, there we go. I'll go into Bunkspeed here. I'm going to turn off my depth field. There we go. So, and I'll hide my backplate so you can see the result of this this new HDR we created. So here's the old one. As I zoom out here, you can see that there. There's the old HDR. And now let's go ahead and go new HDR environment. And it's going to ask us to grab whichever one we created. And Webinar Test, open. There we go. So there's our environment. You can see it here. We have a bunch of different environment controls here. So as you see now, it's not that light because I didn't paint too much in the HDR. You'll see the difference between this thumbnail of the one we were using, which has a lot of white, and this one here, which just has those 3 lights lighting the scene. It's actually pretty cool that you can select just, paint just those lights, and that'll light the scene. And because I have very soft gradations, as you see in the thumbnail image, between the hot spot as it falls off into the rest of the image, that's why I'm getting these really soft value shifts, and I don't have any hard reflection lines in there. Even though the material is extremely reflective, it's reflecting my environment, which as it is here is a very soft sort of scene. So just for all intents and purposes, let's go ahead and punch this up and add some awesome reflection lines. Now I did notice that the other HDR had, the one we used before, had a white band across the top. Let's go ahead and use that sort of approach to start off with. I'll fill that. There we go. Oh, now it's actually a good time. Let's go ahead and activate this. It might be too late. So here, I'll go ahead and delete that from the file. I'm going to upload it again, and then I'll activate it so we can see the cool features going back and forth between Photoshop and Bunkspeed yet again. So I'll activate it. It's now referencing this file in Photoshop. If I save this with that white band there, they come back in here. Now the white band exists in our software. And now you'll see a little bit of that reflection line. Here, let me zoom in. You'll see that reflection in the paint because the surface is very reflective. You'll see that hard reflection line in the paint as it moves around. There we go. And now let's go ahead and put some, let's say you want some reflectivity on the body side. That's pretty easy to do. I'm just going to add a couple parallel white lines here. We'll fill that, and then we'll grab another one, maybe a little bit bigger. We'll fill that. And then let's do a really small one about right here. And I'll fill that with white. I'll save that, go back into Bunkspeed here. And now you see those lines that I created. You can actually see them here reflected in the car and in the wheel flare here along the body side. And it looks like all the reflectivity and stuff is happening on the top of the vehicle. Well, we can change the height here of our environment parameters. We can move this down a little bit, so now you can see the reflectivity moving throughout the vehicle there. We can also change the scale, so you can see a little bit how that slider manipulates the scale. And then the height again, and then the rotation as well. So with mine, the rotation won't really matter too much because mine's a pretty linear image. So that's kind of how to create an HDR from scratch. Obviously, you want to spend some more time with it and add some more light. You can add some colors. But that gives you an idea of how easy it is to use Photoshop to create an HDR. And by activating the auto update, it's activated here, by activating that auto update, you have those, every change that you make in Photoshop will be activated live in Bunkspeed. So that's how to show you how to create an HDR from scratch. Not a very good one, but an HDR nonetheless using Photoshop. And I can switch back and forth between environments here. So you can see the difference. This one here has some soft gradation and has more of a brighter hot spots in certain areas in Photoshop here. So you can see those hot spots and then how the rest is kind of soft. And even though this gray area here is not black or white, it's still emitting a little bit of light because it's not true black. Okay, Dave, did that answer that question? Were there any more specific questions you'd like me to go over in our software?
No, I think we're kind of drawing to an end. One last request someone had was just to quickly show placing this vehicle inside a backplate, basically. So finding an HDR backplate pair that looks good, and then lining up the vehicle so it kind of fits inside the picture, so to speak. I think that'd be a nice kind of grand finale, and then we can save it till next time.
Sounds great. Well,
also, there's lots of nice environment plate pairs in our community, which I suggested, so that may be a good place to grab it.
Definitely. And with that community, it's actually I'll just show you real quick. So I think I have it saved actually, Bunkspeed Community. I'm going to go ahead and enter my credentials. Now it's free to sign up. So just remember that, free to sign up. So in the community here, this is our home page. This is where you can add assets. We have categories here, environments, materials. This is what Dave was talking about. We also have popular items, new items. So for example, this was uploaded by a user. Pretty cool, actually. This is a ground texture. That's pretty cool. You have all the little pebbles and stuff in there. We really have thousands of materials and environments and everything to choose from, uploaded by users and by us at Bunkspeed for you to open up directly in our software. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm logged in our software using the same credentials as I would have used as signing up on bunkspeed.com/community. And then I clicked this toggle between the local and web library. So now I'm referencing the web library since that one on the right is highlighted. I'm going to go to, let's go to plates actually. I'm picking an environment and plate pair. It's going to be best to use a backplate so I know what environment to grab. Let's use an Austria mountain one, would be kind of cool. Let's put this car in a snowy scene. We'll use this backplate here, and it's as simple as clicking and dragging. Click and drag over to our scene. It's downloading it right now, and boom, there we go. There's our backplate. I'll keep this on. So now I can position the car pretty well in this backplate. I'll do more of a final positioning once I grab the environment as well, because as you see, it's still referencing that Auto Photo Studio webinar that we used before. So let's go ahead and switch from plates to environments within our web community. And here's the matching HDR for this backplate, Austrian mountains. Once again, click and drag. And it's downloading from our website, and boom, there we go. Now now what we're seeing reflected in the car is the actual environment. So I'm going to hide our backplate so I can make sure the backplate static, so that stays with the car as we rotate the car around. So the best way to do this workflow to get it as realistic as possible is to hide the backplate and then rotate the image to try to get it to where it would be in real life, to where the backplate, if I show this backplate again, you see the backplate has the trees and the guardrail. So I'll hide that. So I'll try to match up the trees and guardrail, something about that, to keep it as realistic as possible. So I'll make that visible. Now that we have our backplate here, go ahead and let this res up. There we go. Now it's giving a nice shadow. We have the highlights over here from the sun, which is coming from the left of the image. And to get that lined up even closer, you could eyeball it, or what you could do is click on the environment being used. We can say Show Grid. And what that does is that now gives us, here, I'll turn this off, that now gives us a grid to use to help align our images, which really works well when you have like tiles or parallel lines in your backplate for you to match your car to. I don't have too many parallel lines, but I can still kind of eyeball where the horizon line would be. I could see that I should probably go to my camera here and use and twist, maybe twist it a little bit. The camera may have been tilted. So line that up about there. We can change the focal length. Once again, Alt and middle mouse the scroll wheel, so I can grab the correct focal length that looks pretty appropriate. That looks about right. I can go ahead and take my grid off. And there we go. Now that car is getting pretty close to sitting there in the environment. We also, besides twist, which I used before, there's also incline. So I can use that, maybe give it a bit more of a top angle so we can line it up with the backplate a bit better. And let's see, what else can I do? I can also take the HDR, which comes in, and now granted this is true to life, but what I can do is I can punch up the HDR a little bit. I can make it a little brighter. It's a little bit brighter. I'll go ahead and turn ray tracing on so we can see all these adjustments real time. Gamma, if I lower that to about 0.8 or so, it may give us a bit more of a contrast. The lower I go with this, the more contrast the image appears, and the higher I go, the less contrast there is in our rendering. So let's do about 0.75. And once again, I can also change the height and size of the HDR to try to fit it in as best as possible. Perfect. That's looking pretty good. That's how you, that's looking really, really nice. That's how you set up a scene using a backplate and HDR, matching backplate and HDR, and in our software extremely efficiently, easily through the community. So make sure to use that community. All those assets on there are free to use, and anybody can upload and download them. That's a pretty good representation of how to set up your model. If it changes throughout the alias design development stage, you now know how to import parts mating to models, so you don't have to eyeball any importing of the parts. You can retessellate parts. Also showed you how to create and manipulate HDRs, backplates, and materials using Photoshop, and the auto update button. And don't forget the eyedropper. That eyedropper is really, really cool. Use that, and use the Pantone library within Photoshop as well. Anything else you'd like to show, like me to show, Dave, before we close the webinar?
No, I was just going to start saying goodbye to everyone. So you're right on target for that. Let's recap the hardware again, just so people know what you were using, and call it good.
Sure. I was using a Rave computer-built tower, and in there it's a quad GPU system. So I have 4 GPUs. I have one Quadro 6000 and 3 Tesla 2075s. And once again, for this webinar, that speed was barely even tapped into. But it does, a quad GPU system does give you quite the workflow and efficiency. But once again, for this webinar, 1 GPU would probably be just fine. Okay, so there's no more questions. I really appreciate everybody coming today. Thanks for joining, everybody from around the world. We have various attendants from around the world. I hope that we covered everything quickly and efficiently, and everybody now knows a lot of the tools that have existed in our software for a while now, but now we brought them back to the forefront, and feel free to use any of the new features we showed today, and to check us out on our Facebook page, which is just you can search for Bunkspeed on Facebook. And yeah, once again, thanks everybody for coming, and check out our community. Don't forget, check out that community. Now I'd like to say thanks to Dave for helping out today with the webinar, and we'll go ahead and do more webinars in the future. Once again, I am Brian Hillner, the Experience Specialist, and my job is to get the word out there about our software, so I'll be doing a lot more webinars in the future, so please stay tuned. Once again, we thank you for coming, and check us out on Facebook and also bunkspeed.com. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.